Have you ever loved someone so deeply you forgot to love yourself? Not in the poetic way that songs romanticize, but in the quiet erosion. The kind of love where your needs shrink, where your voice softens into silence, where you stop noticing the slow, almost imperceptible way your joy bends to someone else's comfort. There's a man I once knew. Let's call him Jake. On paper, Jake had everything: discipline, compassion, the kind of steady strength that made people feel safe. But in love, he disappeared. He gave and gave and gave until he could no longer remember what it felt like to simply exist for himself. And one night, standing alone in his apartment, staring at a mirror fogged by the shower's steam, he said something that struck me like thunder. I thought loving her meant saying yes to everything. But one day, I looked in the mirror, and I couldn't recognize the man looking back. This is the hidden cost of love without boundaries. We often think of stoicism as armor, as emotional restraint, but that's a shallow reading. Real stoicism isn't cold. It's clear. It doesn't teach us to love less. It teaches us to love wisely, to hold space for both closeness and self-respect, to remember that a heart without a boundary is a flame left to the wind. Today, we're not here to shame your openness or your tenderness. We're here to protect it, because the truth is, you were never meant to dissolve into someone else's needs. Love, when guided by stoic clarity, becomes a sanctuary, not a sacrifice. In this video, we'll explore something quietly powerful: the unseen power of stoic boundaries in love. We'll walk through the inner ruins left behind by boundaryless affection, and we'll rebuild, stone by stone, a new kind of love. One rooted not in fear of losing someone, but in reverence for never losing yourself. If you've ever felt drained in love, like you're always the one adjusting, always the one reaching, then this is for you. And if something inside you has quietly whispered, there must be another way, you're not wrong. There is. We'll unravel how boundaries can become sacred, how discipline and love becomes freedom, and how you can reclaim yourself without pushing others away. If this message resonates already, take a moment, subscribe to Stoic now. It's not just a channel. It's a community for those who choose clarity over chaos, depth over drama, and self-respect over emotional self-abandonment. And if you find value here, I invite you to share it with someone who may be quietly struggling too. Take a deep breath, because what you're about to rediscover isn't just how to love someone. It's how to love yourself in the process. Now let's begin. What happens when you don't set boundaries? You don't wake up one day and realize your boundaries are gone. No, it happens in inches. At first, it's something small. You cancel a plan to be available for them. You bite your tongue in moments that deserve your truth. You say yes when your whole body aches for a no. And you tell yourself it's love. That compromise is a virtue. That silence is strength. That maybe, just maybe, loving harder will make everything feel whole. But slowly, that wholeness begins to crumble. You stop asking yourself what you need. You start walking on eggshells just to keep the peace. And by the time you notice how tired you are, how resentful, how unrecognizable, you're already standing in a version of love that demands your disappearance. This isn't melodrama. It's what happens when love goes unguarded. The Stoics understood this long before therapists gave it a name. Marcus Aurelius warned, "The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts." And when your thoughts are consumed with keeping someone else happy, meeting every unspoken need, avoiding every emotional landmine, your soul stops being your own. It starts belonging to someone else. This is the hidden tragedy of loving without limits. It doesn't always look like pain. It looks like anxiety that won't go away, like constant second-guessing, like a version of yourself that's always editing, always shrinking, always bracing. And if you're not careful, you'll call this devotion. You'll mistake emotional erosion for sacrifice. But there is nothing noble in self-abandonment, nothing sacred in giving away the very core of who you are. Let me tell you about Amber. She was the kind of woman who carried everyone. The fixer, the helper, the one who made sure everyone else had what they needed, even if it left her running on fumes. When she fell in love, she brought that same energy. She gave her time, her plans, even her career. She thought, this is what commitment means. But 5 years in, when the relationship ended without warning, she didn't just lose him. She lost her compass. She told me, "I don't know who I am outside of this relationship. I built my life around him, and now there's nothing left for me." Amber's story isn't rare. It's alarmingly common. Because we've been taught that real love is unconditional. But unconditional shouldn't mean unprotected. It shouldn't mean unbalanced. True love, as the Stoics would say, is built on logos, on reason, on clarity, on harmony. And harmony cannot exist when one person is constantly shrinking so the other can breathe easier. When we talk about the stakes of not setting boundaries, we're not talking about minor inconveniences. We're talking about identity collapse. We're talking about a lifetime of living beneath your own potential, trapped in dynamics where your peace is the price of connection. We're talking about the slow, quiet death of the self. So here's the truth. If you find yourself exhausted, uncertain, constantly needing reassurance in a relationship, it may not be that you're too sensitive. It may be that your soul is screaming for boundaries that were never drawn. The good news? You can redraw them. You can reclaim yourself. You can build a version of love that nurtures, not consumes. But first, you must face the truth you've been avoiding. That without boundaries, love doesn't grow, it devours. And that is a truth too many of us learn only after the damage is done. So ask yourself gently, who am I when I'm not bending for someone else? What parts of me have I silenced in the name of keeping love alive? You owe it to yourself to know the answer. Because you deserve a love that doesn't cost you your spirit. Love without losing yourself. If the first part of love feels like a blooming, then the middle, the part where boundaries are tested, is where the roots are revealed. So many of us confuse being available with being loving. We think, if I'm always here, if I never say no, if I carry the weight without complaint, they'll stay. But here's the twist, the part most of us don't expect. People don't truly fall in love with our constant presence. They fall in love with our presence of mind. And boundaries, clear, sacred, unapologetic, are what preserve that presence. Stoicism doesn't ask us to become cold. It doesn't tell us to detach and live untouched by emotion. No, that's not strength, it's retreat. Real Stoic love isn't the absence of feeling. It's the mastery of it. It's the ability to love fully while staying rooted in yourself. Epictetus said, "Keep your will in harmony with nature, and you will never be forced to act against yourself." Read that again, slowly. To act against yourself is to say yes when you mean no. It's to tolerate disrespect in the name of loyalty. It's to sacrifice your peace to preserve someone else's comfort. That's not love. That's surrender. But imagine this instead. Imagine love like a lighthouse. It doesn't chase the boats that pass. It doesn't follow them into storms. It stays rooted, steady, luminous. And because it does, it saves lives. You don't protect love by giving more than you have. You protect love by honoring where you end and where someone else begins. I once knew a couple, Claire and Elijah. From the outside, they looked ideal. But inside their relationship, Claire was drowning. Elijah, struggling with his own pain, relied on her for everything: emotional regulation, validation, purpose. Claire became more therapist than partner. And the more she gave, the more he withdrew. She tried harder, sacrificed more, until one day, in a moment of brutal clarity, she said, "If I keep loving him this way, there will be no me left." That's the day she drew her first real boundary. She didn't leave, not yet, but she started saying no when she meant it. She started asking for space. She stopped explaining her worth. And slowly, Elijah had to meet her where she was, or let her go. To love with boundaries is to love with wisdom. It's to say, "I will walk with you, but I will not crawl just to keep you company." It's to say, "I can be compassionate without becoming your cure." And here's the truth no one teaches us early enough. Boundaries aren't walls. They're the sacred architecture that make intimacy sustainable. You can't keep pouring from a cup that never gets refilled. You can't keep giving grace to someone who refuses growth. You can't keep compromising when the cost is your own sanity. Boundaries are not how you push people away. They're how you stay close without getting lost. When you create space for your own soul, you don't just protect yourself, you elevate the relationship. You give it clarity, you give it standards, and above all, you give it the chance to be real, not just built on fantasy or codependency. Because here's the Stoic secret. The people meant for you won't leave because you have boundaries. They'll rise to meet them. They'll respect them. And those who don't, they were only in love with what you gave, not who you are. So take a breath. Let the guilt fall away. You're not selfish for drawing the line. You're strong for finally realizing You deserve one. How to set stoic boundaries in love. To set a boundary is not to declare war, it is to claim peace. By the time you reach this point in love, something inside you begins to stir. It's not anger, not bitterness. It's the quiet realization that love without limits becomes a kind of emotional erosion. And the only thing standing between you and that slow collapse is the line you draw. This is where Stoicism shines, not as a philosophy of detachment, but as a code of clarity. Because in love, it's not the grand gestures that protect you. It's the tiny decisions you make when no one is watching. The moments you choose to honor yourself, even if it means disappointing someone else. The first principle is simple, but profound. Know what you control. This is the bedrock of Stoic thought. Epictetus reminded us, some things are up to us, and some things are not. You cannot control how someone loves you. You cannot force them to be kind, present, or accountable, but you can control how you respond. You can decide whether to engage or withdraw, whether to stay silent or speak your truth, whether to keep reaching or to step back with dignity. This is emotional sovereignty. I will not beg for love. I will not betray myself for closeness. The second truth cuts deeper. Don't confuse compassion with compliance. There's a quiet danger in being too kind. In thinking love means absorbing everything, fixing everything, forgiving everything, even when nothing changes. But compassion isn't the absence of limits. It's the presence of conscious care for them and for you. I remember a man named Luis. His partner struggled deeply with emotional volatility. He excused it at first, called it stress, trauma, unhealed wounds. And maybe it was. But every time she lashed out, Luis silenced himself. Every time she accused, he explained. Until the day she threw a wine glass at the wall, inches from his face, and he still stayed. It wasn't love that kept him. It was guilt wearing a mask. And that's when he woke up. Luis didn't stop loving her, but he stopped accepting pain as proof of that love. He calmly, clearly, told her, I'm not here to fix you. I'm here to love you. And if loving you costs me my safety, then I have to walk away. That's not cruelty. That's courage. And it leads to the final Stoic practice. Use the evening review. Marcus Aurelius would reflect each night, asking himself, did I act with integrity today? Did I live by my principles? In love, this practice becomes your mirror. Each evening, ask, where did I honor myself today? Where did I fold to avoid discomfort? What boundary did I reinforce or ignore? These questions aren't judgments. They're guideposts. And with each honest answer, you sharpen the edge of your self-respect. Because boundaries are not set once. They are practiced, reinforced, reviewed. They are not for controlling others, but for calibrating yourself. So if you've been pouring from an empty cup, stop. Not out of resentment, but out of reverence. Reverence for your own soul, your peace, your clarity. Draw one small boundary today. Say no, kindly but firmly. Take space without explanation. End a conversation when it turns disrespectful. Protect your time, your mind, your presence. Because as the Stoics teach us, a life unexamined is a life surrendered. And in love, a boundary not drawn is a self slowly erased. Jake, the man who stared at his reflection, unsure of who he'd become, he eventually learned a truth many of us discover only through pain. Boundaries didn't make him harder to love. They made him impossible to ignore. He didn't build walls. He built standards. And for the first time in years, he felt seen. Not just by others, but by himself. This journey you've taken isn't just about drawing lines in love. It's about returning home to the core of who you are, before compromise became survival, before silence became safety, before your value depended on someone else's approval. Love, when rooted in fear, always demands too much. But love, when guided by clarity, becomes a sanctuary, not a sacrifice. You don't need to explain why you need space to breathe. You don't owe an apology for preserving your peace. You don't have to justify the boundaries that allow your soul to stay whole. And if someone walks away because of them, let them, because you didn't lose them. You lost the illusion that love must be earned through self-abandonment. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, if it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it. I'd add, if it is not nourishing, do not keep it. That includes relationships. That includes roles. That includes routines of pleasing that keep you small. In a world that often mistakes sacrifice for sincerity, Boundaries become radical. They say, I love you, but I also love me. They say, I'm here with open arms, but I will not disappear to hold you closer. They say, my heart is generous, but not directionless. And here's the beauty. When you choose peace over people-pleasing, when you let your no be just as sacred as your yes, you become magnetic in a way that requires no explanation. You radiate something few people have: self-respect without apology, presence without performance. That energy, it changes your life. So I invite you, no, I encourage you, to take one quiet step today. Revisit a place in your life where love has grown heavy. Ask, am I still honoring myself here? Or am I just holding on out of habit, fear, or guilt? And if this video stirred something within you, don't rush past it. Sit with it, journal, reflect, speak it out loud, or even better, share it. Because I promise you this, someone in your circle is struggling with the same silent exhaustion, and your courage might just become their permission. If this message spoke to your soul, I gently ask you to subscribe to Stoic now. Not because we chase numbers, but because we're building something different here. A space for reflection, for growth, for honest, powerful, self-honoring lives. And your presence matters. Drop a comment below, share your story. Your words might be the echo someone else needs to hear. You don't have to be perfect to be worthy. You don't have to give endlessly to be loved. You simply have to begin, one boundary at a time. Because every time you choose clarity over chaos, peace over pleasing, truth over comfort, you are choosing yourself. And that choice? It is the most stoic and the most sacred act of all.